Senate's prepared, and I voted on just every transportation tax increase we possibly can go. Transportation should be and ought to be self-sustaining, and it's not. Okay, obviously. You have to get hold of the members of the House of Delegates and say enough is enough. You know, you guys have got to do it. And the problem we run into is a lot of senior House members are from rural areas, you know. They're not going to raise their people's taxes because they don't have any problems. Their problem is they don't have enough jobs or enough cars on the road, you know, right, you know, sustaining it, you know. But what you see now is the population shift of what we call the Golden Crescent. Hampton Roads, Richmond, Northern Virginia, we have the votes. We're ready to shake up. And I gave Newman 1 year. We're going to shake up the CTB, Commonwealth Transportation Board, to reflect not the ancient VDOT areas of responsibility, which was originally set up by congressional district. We're going to set up by congressional district again, but it's going to be, once you do the congressional districts, the majority will be within that Golden Crescent, far and away. And that means that yes, as it should be. And I'm not after rural areas. I don't want to hurt rural areas. But, you know, I watch some of the projects going on in Southwest Virginia when I drive through, you know, fixing a road that doesn't need to be fixed, as opposed to this embarrassment that I call it when you came through the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel and entered the third world country of potholes and everything else as you drove up here. I mean, that's, to me, and I've given a speech before, it's a personal embarrassment to me that our roads are in this kind of condition.
And then number two, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The Midtown Tunnel seems to be headed toward a legal problem. Do you care to comment on that?
Sure, absolutely. I just had breakfast with the governor yesterday and in support of a fundraiser for our local congressman, but he is, well, here's the problem, okay? You have 1.5 million people here. Who's got a calculator? You got 1.5 million people and you got a $1.5 billion project. Do the math. How much is it for every man, woman, and child? The problem we have is anything down here is going to involve tunnels or bridges. We don't like bridges for the same reason I told you. We can take everything out, overhead heights, okay? And Navy doesn't like bridges because bridges can drop and block channels and carriers are trapped and that kind of thing, okay? So you have this issue going on if it's extremely expensive to do anything, okay? Where does it come from, you know? Having told you what I told you about new construction money, it ain't coming from that fund, okay? So where's it going to come from? It's got to be told. Now, we put $300 million into it already to try to alleviate some of the costs, but the bottom line is it's $1.83 going through during peak period and $1.50 going through otherwise, and which is, you know, $3 or $4 a day for, you know, some people that are working in shipyards and, you know, arguably making $22, $23 an hour, which is a good wage, but, you know, pretty good clip. You know, $4, you know, $20 a week, $1,000 a year. Pretty good clip out of somebody's wallet. And so it's gotten to be very, very controversial. But to quote some preacher out of Chicago, the chickens will come home to roost. You know, and it is what it is, and it costs what it does. Had we done this 10 years ago when we pushed a referendum, had a local sales tax effort, had we done this, they'd be built right now. They'd be built for a fraction of the cost. But again, go back to what I originally said about transportation and inflation. Costs go up. And that's not the big project. The big project is going to be the third crossing of the Hampton Roads. You have the Monitor Merrimack, you have the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, you have the James River Bridge, that next crossing. Obviously, they're jammed now. Imagine what they're going to be like 20 years from now. And that's a huge problem we've got to face. But that's the issue. It's so expensive. And how are you going to pay for it? And which goes back to the transportation thing earlier. I had one more question. Everybody's quiet.
You answered my question about tolls.
Oh, okay, all right. Having said that, I'm a fan of it, okay? It is what it is, you gotta pay them. If we don't do it now, it never will get done, and we'll be stuck in the same place we're in right now. Only getting worse, and then, you know, everybody yelling at people like me, you know, what are you gonna do to fix our roads? So I'm pushing it, I'm for it, but that's done. We'll let Reggie, Reggie. Oh, yeah.
Two questions I want you to address if you will.
Well, you don't want to talk, you want me to talk?
Yeah, right, I'm trying to stretch you out.
I got it, Reggie, I got it, okay, all right.
460, what can you say about that? And the second thing is the project labor agreement on Dulles 2.
Okay.
Address that.
460 is scheduled to be a PPTA. Okay. Obviously, PPTAs. Now, you know, one thing's how I feel. One thing's how body politic feels, okay? Body politic, the paper, who, has undue influence and has put 2 or 3 nails in the coffin of 460, in my humble estimation. Chris Jones, who is a very powerful member of the House of Delegates and the budget negotiator, does not want to have 460 happen. And we have a saying in the General Assembly, and maybe it's a little bit of ego, maybe it's whatever, but governors come and go, we're always here. We stay the same. This governor's could be out of office, and I hope he's out of office in just 8 months. Why do I hope that? Because I hope he's Vice President of the United States. That's what I really, really hope, okay? Having said that, it's been his pet project since he was a member of the House of Delegates. He and I were elected the same year in side-by-side House of Delegates seats here in Virginia Beach. And he's been a fan of that. He's just as committed today, having had breakfast with him yesterday, just committed yesterday as he was. So he will continue to push it. My humble estimation is Chris Jones will continue to do everything he can to throw a block into it. He will not get to the point he needs to be, I think, before he leaves office. And so I believe 460 is probably a little bit in jeopardy. If I was a benevolent dictator, knowing how much it cost, unfortunately we don't have that position, but I'd fix Suffolk in 58 and let it go. That 58 where there's a series of traffic lights once and then you pick up speed again, I'd fix that, and it essentially accomplishes the same thing in terms of moving traffic out. I'd even consider widening that as a much, much cheaper option than looking at 460. I don't think the people around 460, all the businesses, are scared to death. What is it, Virginia Peanut? What's a peanut diner or whatever they call it out there?
Virginia Diner.
Virginia Diner, yeah, with the peanuts, yeah. I'm sure they're scared to death that, once they build this thing, nobody will stop at the diner and that kind of thing. So, for all those reasons.
Tell them about Pierce's Barbecue, they still go there.
Yeah, they still got a Pierce's, yeah. But Pierce's is better than Virginia Diner. But anyway. Yeah, it is.
How about
What was the second question?
project labor agreement in Dulles too,
All right,
and
PLA.
funding, and whether or not the Secretary of Transportation is correct or the Attorney General is correct on whether or not you can withhold funding?
Well, I'm not sure I'm into it that much. I'm familiar with some of the bills that went in that said we got to pass a PLA, we got to pass a PLA. My biggest concern is bonding. And look, I don't think that anybody ought to be forced to bid a project and required to be union. And we're still a right-to-work state, okay? However, I don't think that excludes unions. Low bid is low bid, and I deal with it every day. That's what I do, in real life. Everything I do is fixed price. Low bid wins. If you can get the job done better, faster, quicker than the other guy, that's what keeps you in business. And I have a poster in my office says I was low bid, and has a guy with a pocket inside out and a fly flying around his head and tattered clothes, right? I also have another poster that has contractor's definitions. And it's engineer is somebody who assumes everything but responsibility. Consultant is, if you're not part of the solution, there's great money to be made prolonging the problem, okay? Yeah. CPA is the guy that comes in after the battle and bayonets all the wounded, okay? And then lawyer is the guy who strips the bodies after the battle's done. So that's my contractor list. And I'm up for that kind of program. I suspect that Virginia has prevailed so far in terms of saying fair, level playing field, let the winner win. And despite the wishes of Maryland, once you start talking about these projects with Metro, you run into this MWA, Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, and so now you bring in deep thinkers from Washington and even deeper thinkers from Maryland. To negotiate an agreement. Virginia stood pretty firm on this. This is all in Virginia. And I'm not actually familiar with the exact legal nuances of that particular thing, but I have always supported, as you heard. And my biggest concern is that we don't put something into place that causes us not to be able to bond the project, which was a concern of MWA when they talked about the closing minutes of the last session. So